Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Sen here with the Game Dojo. We have tonight on the show Ryan Schoon, who is going to be telling us about his work in progress, first responders, a little bit more. But before we get there, I wanted just to ask Ryan, hey, what's this I hear, Ryan, about a job or something you're doing that's new? What's that all about?
Oh, so yeah, I'm part of an organization, the Indie Game Developer Network,
Okay,
which
cool.
is mostly been role-playing games. That's how I got involved with them through my work designing RPGs. And yeah,
Hmm.
our leadership team had a changeover, which happens like every 4 years. So yeah, I took over as membership coordinator, and our current membership coordinator moved on to a convention coordinator. So kind of left
Ah,
a spot open for me there. Yeah, so if you're
cool.
out there listening and you are interested in hearing more about the IGDN, talk to me because as of January,
Okay.
I'll be coordinating your membership.
Okay. And what it
So,
was exactly what privileges do members have if they're members of this alliance?
well, so first of all, it is a network, like it says. I mean, it's a great way to meet people. I mean, we've got people across all like all sides of the role playing game industry, from writers to
Hmm.
publishers to printers to artists, and we've got all of that. And we're starting to expand out to card and board game developers. It's not an exclusive role
Nice.
playing group. It's just
Hmm.
that just seems to be what we've got right now. So we'd love
Right,
to
right.
expand out. And other than the networking, we go in together to cut costs. So things like printing,
Oh, okay.
marketing, promotion, even booths at conventions are all going to be cheaper for us since we can go in as a group. So it's really worked out
Hmm.
well for me since we're all indie people. So none of us are big enough to do a lot of this stuff on our own. So
Yes,
really,
but together, you're
right,
strong.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And like you're saying, it's mostly RPGs right now, and
Well,
maybe getting into the board gaming.
it was started by a group of RPG designers,
Hmm.
um, and so of course it's going to attract more RPG designers just because that's who they know, that's who they interact with.
Hmm.
But our goal is just to open it. It's to open to any designer of any industry.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, I mean, obviously our knowledge set right now is predominantly role playing games, but some things like marketing and artists, rules editing, layout, design, like that's universal. Everybody needs that stuff.
Hmm. Hmm. It's funny. I've been listening a lot to the RPG design panel cast.
Yeah,
Can't remember. Yeah, and it's like very appropriate because a lot of what they talk about is very universal, especially the writing parts. I think that's the important part that board game designers probably don't do as much writing as RPG guys, because RPG guys, it's all writing all the time,
right.
and
Yeah,
very little of the physical prototyping and that kind of stuff that we worry about in board game land, or card layout and that kind of stuff. And I mean, obviously there's crossovers here and there, but my point is that in listening to it, I'm getting a lot of good ideas, and like how to work with an editor and how to do layout and all these things that I will never actually do, but I will know what I'm looking for, or when I'm talking to somebody about things, I'll
yeah, it's important
have those
information
in
for
mind,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get straight to the chase now. What's going on in first responders? I named the episode "Changes" not just because of David Bowie, but because you said that you had a lot of changes in the game over the
Yeah,
last little while.
it's been going through a lot of revisions. And first of all, I just want to say we were talking about this earlier. Sorry about my webcam being out of focus. I don't know what's going on.
You
Whatever.
look handsome.
Thank you. Maybe by next time it'll be fixed, or I'll just have to buy a new webcam. But besides that, yes, we talked when we talked last. I had just gotten back from Metatopia, and I had all these ideas, and I hadn't
Yep.
really implemented them yet. Well, I've implemented most of them now, and have done a couple play tests with the new rules, um, and it's running a lot smoother for
Well, that's
sure.
great.
And I think one thing I was talked about doing that I hadn't done yet was the player boards. and I have since made those, and I
Right?
actually documented the process on my blog, just so I'd have something to
Awesome.
go back to. And I think anytime I do major revisions, I'm going to document how I did them and kind of like what my mentality was. So
I think that's a good idea.
yeah, so I have them here. They're obviously just like foam with information printed on them. But yeah, so if you can kind of
Yeah,
see
I
the
can see that.
player board
Yeah.
here.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if it's backwards for you or not, but
No, no, it's
basically,
fine.
so
Luminant
slots.
Microsystems.
Yeah, so each corporation kind of has their own uh, player board with their own ability, their own factory where they make new vehicles, their own upgrade slots, and their own way to draw cards.
Okay.
So the idea that I had when I started was that you know there are the four circles for your actions, and you place your pawn on one, and that's the action you take that turn.
Right.
But I've play tested a couple times now with this rule set, and what I'm realizing is that people are always only moving their vehicles because if they don't, there's a chance that they won't reach their objective, and the person that does always move their vehicles will just swoop in and take it. And
Right, right,
since
right.
nobody's upgrading, nobody's buying cards, you're not at a disadvantage if you don't, because everybody's moving the same speed, everybody's doing the same thing. So I need to play test it some more, but what I'm toying with is that you just move left from right, and you get, if you want, to build a new vehicle, to move a vehicle, and then to buy a card. That way you're not losing out on an action just to buy a card.
Right. Okay.
Because I feel
Yeah.
like no people have not been buying cards. And I've dropped the price of everything. So earlier it was people weren't buying them because they didn't think there was value in them. And back then you could buy a card at the end of each round, you could buy a card. But they were so expensive, nobody wanted to buy them. Well, I fixed
Hmm.
that. But now that it's an action, nobody wants to take the action because the action is too expensive.
Right, right, right. So really what you need to do is incentivize behavior, right? So
Yeah,
in anything, if the players aren't acting the way you want them to act, something's wrong with how you're scoring things or how you're kind of scoring things, like things that lead up to the scoring. So if going for the goal is always seen as the preeminent thing to do, even when it may not be, but if it appears that way to people who are just, don't understand the system, then everybody's going to default to that action of I'm just going to move because if I don't, then
right.
X, Y, and
Then
Z.
somebody else might get there
So
before me.
yeah, and I mean, there's probably a sense of scale, excuse me, and granularity issues that are at play as well. That if because I know you shrunk the map size a little bit,
I
right?
did. I shrunk the map size a lot from 6x6 to 4x4.
Right. I mean, that's actually a huge percentage of shrinkage.
Oh, it is,
Uh,
and I think it plays a lot. There was a lot more competition on a
mhm.
four-player on a 4x4 grid, and I think that's maybe what spawned this. Because now that everything's so much closer, if you don't move, there is a really good chance somebody might steal that one from you.
Exactly, exactly.
Now
So
if you
you're
let
using
it
your
go,
opportunity. Yeah.
right, and the way I looked at it from a design perspective is, okay, you can always be racing to them, but if you just let a couple early ones go and focus on upgrading, you'll get a lot more towards the end of the game because you'll be fully upgraded.
Maybe.
Well, maybe right, but people aren't incentivized to do that. You know, they
No,
say,
they well, people aren't seeing the long game. I mean, one thing you could possibly do is not only give the upgrades an ability, but a really small points value, so that people feel that it's valuable in and of itself. You might have to jack up the scores for the actual goals themselves. Um, it's this kind of weird. It's a kind of weird system though, because that would actually just push way towards that. So there's a fine balance.
yeah,
You
it's
it's
going to be
mathematical.
So I think maybe that giving the people the option, like giving you take like a main action and a secondary action or something like that.
Yeah, that
Like
could work.
you always move, so you don't ever miss out on the move, and then you get maybe a second, like either build a thing, upgrade a thing, or get a card, like a primary, secondary.
Rannis555 says that, Ryan, you should make it more like Pathfinder.
Oh, yeah, I should. Everything Pathfinder is the best system; it can do everything. So I've been
Yeah,
told.
yeah. So Bob is asking the exact question: Is there a big enough payoff for upgrading vehicles to make up for missing an objective?
I mean, there absolutely is, and I think that if people played it a couple times, they'd see that because some of the
Right.
in-game crisis cards are really hard to complete. And right now,
Without
it's
having those
right
ex.
without
Yeah.
having those upgrades. They're really difficult. Right now, there is a set amount of turns. It's not based on completing all the crisis cards. It's
Mhm.
when all the turns are up, it's done. So a couple of the sessions we've played, when we've run out of time, when it's been that last round, there's still like 5 or 6 crisis cards out that require a high level of upgrades that nobody can complete because nobody had upgraded. Now,
Right.
now it worked out in that game for everybody because since nobody had upgraded, nobody got those. But if
Mm.
one person had upgraded earlier, they could have swooped in and maybe taken 2 or 3 of those cards at the end, which
Now,
would have been a huge swing.
are the cards at the end worth more than the cards at the beginning?
Yes, they
Okay.
go up in scale both in the
Difficulty and
premise.
point
Yeah,
value. Yeah.
the theme is like as you go through the year, they're letting you handle more and more like bigger events. Like they're kind of
Sure.
handing the reins over to you slowly over the course of the year, so that by the end of the year, you're handling huge things like terrorist attacks and stuff that you like wouldn't normally handle. Like you start off getting cats out of the trees, and you end up like sending in the SWAT team.
Right. Yeah. I like that. And I think that's all well and good. I think there's a lot of potential there thematically, but also mechanically. Um, so I'm gonna just rain. So have you played Mystic Vale yet?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, and okay, so I'm going to tell you my experience of Mystic Vale, and you can
Okay.
say whether you had the same or not. But the reason why I'm telling you this is because of what I want you to think about for your game. I played Mystic Vale, and because you played it, you know what it's like.
Hmm.
And in the end, I said, yeah, it's interesting, but I'll probably never play it again.
I said the same thing.
Yes, and why did you say that?
I just felt like there was no end game. I felt like, for me personally, I spent the whole game of Mystic Vale building an engine that never went anywhere.
Right. So same thing for me. Like I just felt like, well, I don't care about anybody else's moves. My moves are my moves, and they're fine. And in the end, people have told me that, and this is what the actual crux of this conversation is for me, is that people have told me, oh, yeah, but they've released an expansion already, and that makes up for all the issues that you have with it, Sen. And it's like, well, then why did they just do that in the first place,
Uh huh.
right?
Yeah.
My point here is that you need to present the best game the first play, and the reason why is statistically, even things like Monopoly, played an average of like less than one time,
Yeah. I
right?
can see that. I understand that about Monopoly.
Yeah. And so, yeah, exactly, right? But so for your game, if you want it to be that game that, hits the table more than once, that's a winner, right? If it gets to the table more than once, you
Yeah.
won.
I mean, yeah.
Um, but in that case, you need it to show well the very first time. And that doesn't mean that there can't be depth and strategy that you find out later, but that means that some of the cool stuff should come out, in the first play.
Yeah. I
Then
agree with you, and that was
worth
something
that.
I made note of during every playtest was that people they weren't doing the cool stuff because they were
Hmm.
so worried about getting those early objectives. Um, so
Right. So I mean, something's valued wrong, is what I'm saying. Um, So when it's funny, you know Blood Rage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you played it?
Oh yeah, I've played many games of Blood Rage.
Okay, so and do you like it?
I love it. It's one of my favorite games.
It's funny because Vlada Schlato and I were playing it once with Eric, and we're sitting there, and Vlada's going, why do we do this? Why are we playing this way? It's not fun, and yet I'm going to win because Vlada was killing us,
Yeah,
and he's going, but I'm not having fun doing it. I'm just doing what the game allows me to do and getting the most points for it, but it's not fun at all. And so this was like maybe 2 years before Blood Rage ever came out. And so, Eric's like, yeah, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. And that's the other point is that all this cool stuff that you have or the stuff that you think is cool, if nobody's experiencing it, why is it there? Or if it's there, how do we get it to the forefront so that it does become something that, you know, everybody's doing? So there's something either misvalued or on your side or the player's side, or there's something that's not not quite getting translated into you should do this because it's fun and gets you points,
yeah. Well, I
right?
think I think that maybe giving points. So I think awarding points, kind of like Blood Rage. That's a good example. If you upgrade your clan stats
Yeah.
in Blood Rage, you get points at the end of the game just for doing that. So if you
Yes.
look at a clan stat and you think, I will never need, more than 6 guys on the board at one time, but
Yep.
if I upgrade it anyway, so
I'm gonna
maybe
get some
that,
points.
right? So maybe that is because I have what, three, or you start at one, and then there's 2 levels of upgrades past
Hmm.
that. So I think if you award, like, if you get all three up to or maybe just even a
Yeah.
victory point, a prestige point for every upgrade,
Yeah.
people might look at the board that gives $1, or they can upgrade, which will give them victory points at the end of the game. Which,
Yeah.
money's also victory points, but it makes the decision a little harder. I like
Right.
I
And
like
so
that.
it's the idea of really trying to well lead a horse to water and make them drink, right? We can only think about what the player knows from the outset. As if we think of game theory in terms of a rational agent, um, if like 80% of it mathematically is too difficult for a person to comprehend on first blush, they're going to act as rationally as they possibly can and do exactly what they think they should be doing, which is getting the carrot that's sticking out in front of them,
Yeah.
the points for the basic goals of getting the goals on the map, not the other things. Even though some of them might think, hey, it'd just be cool to make a cool car, or it'd be really neat to have this upgrade on my thing, but I can't do that because if I do that, then I'm losing this. And there is a nice push pull there in terms of crunchy decision, like, oh, do I do this or do that? But it sounds like um, you've invented like 2 or 3 systems that have never been used by anybody. And even in your playtest, like if you're a player in that playtest, are you buying the cool stuff or are you playing for points?
Well, I bought the cool stuff, but
And did you?
I don't always play in my play tests.
Oh, I understand that. But what I'm
So
saying that
when I play,
if you
yes,
start buying the cool stuff, do then other people start buying the cool stuff?
they didn't.
Did you kick
I
their asses?
I I did, but
Hmm.
a lot of that is like, well, you made the game, so I try not to. Like, I actually try not to play in my play tests. I
Sure. I think that's smart as well.
I want to see how they handle it.
Hmm.
And sometimes, so I think one thing I did halfway through. So after we play tested it once with one group, and I went to play test it again with another group, and had one guy carry over. And halfway through, I was like, okay, I see that nobody is upgrading your vehicles. So I'm going to just throw a rule out there that whenever you move a vehicle, before you move it, you can pay to upgrade it.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, people started upgrading their vehicles.
Right, because the
And
cost of the opportunity cost of getting the goal was not lost.
right, exactly. And then when they started doing that, I think the game just became more fun. because we were able to pull off some really cool combos towards the end of the game
Right,
since
right,
people had
right.
upgraded early. And even
And
if they
so
didn't
maybe is that the only fix then? Is that it?
well,
Why
but
did you
that's
do that?
still so it still doesn't help. People still weren't drawing cards. And
Oh, okay.
I think I've already kind of narrowed it down. I think that I'm either going to do two things. Either cards are too expensive, which they are, and people don't
Okay.
want to spend their money on the cards. They haven't seemed to think that the benefit is worth the money they spend buying a card. So
Well, yeah, I mean, so valuation's a
yeah,
really hard thing. Um, when you go into a new game that you've never played before, what do you do personally when you think about how am I going to win this, or what do you do?
you mean besides like reading the rule book and looking at the board and
Yeah, like
planning my strategy?
let's say somebody else taught you even.
Yeah,
Yeah, what do you do to
I
figure it out?
I mean I play it. I watch the way they play it, and I try to
The people the people have already played it?
yeah the people that have already played it. Like I try to kind of
Yeah.
watch what they do, and if they're doing something repeatedly, I think maybe I should do that repeatedly
Yeah. Okay.
because you know
Yeah. So there's like in valuation of a card or something like that. Magic the Gathering is a really easy way to do it. When you think about valuation, when you think of something like, oh, a flying man. Do you remember Flying Man
no
from Arabian Nights?
that
No.
was I'm too young for that. I, I,
Okay, let's think.
I started with I started after Arabian Nights.
Oh yeah, Arabian Nights is like the first expansion, right? So, I'm trying to think of another Magic card. Okay, like a well, any of them. They have
Sure.
a set cost for a set
Yeah,
reason, right? It's not mathematically perfect, like Richard Garfield will say. No, we don't have an equation. There's a slight one, but
and
it's not
it's changed
fixed.
a lot over the years.
Exactly that too, right? And so, but when you look at a card, you can sort of, if you play enough Magic, value what it's worth
Oh yeah,
in your
absolutely.
deck, in your situation, right?
Mhm.
Not just money. I'm talking about, play wise.
Yeah.
And so, is there that easy affordance within your card system right now, your game, where somebody can look and see, oh, I know what that's going to lead to? Because if there's not, then that can also be a problem.
Sure.
That people just don't see the link between doing all this fun upgrading and in the end getting the points. I mean, is it because there's not a really hard one out, a little really hard puzzle or goal out at first? Like, what if there was a hard goal out at first? And they're going, how do you ever do that? Oh, apparently you do that by upgrading,
Well, so the only issue
right?
with that, yeah, the only issue with that would be that it takes up a spot on the board, and there's only 16 slots. Um, but I think, yeah, but you definitely have a good point here, and I don't think that that's as much of the problem as it is they can see the value, but that the cards were too expensive. Like,
Okay. Okay.
because I get feedback from the players like, you know what, that card looks awesome, but I'm not willing to pay that much money for it.
Yeah, because you have two costs. You actually have two costs to your cards. You have
Yeah,
the opportunity cost, and then you have the dollar cost, which is also points, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
you're looking at like this big double whammy. Like that's a major setback when somebody could just zoom in and sweep your point from you, right? Or whatever the points were. Um, is there an opportunity? So right now you have a zero sum issue with the case of your goals, right? It's like first one to the gets it all and everybody else gets nothing. Is that true? Do I
So
remember
no,
what's
oh, well, so at the beginning of the game, that is, at the
yes, okay.
beginning of the game.
But
So
eventually,
eventually, no, because you have to. I mean,
yeah, because eventually you have
you
to
have to
partner.
work together. You have to partner up with people to complete some of those harder ones. At the beginning of the
Hmm.
game, and really even at the beginning of the game, you do, because most of them, they take two vehicles to complete,
Hmm.
and
And you
even
start with
starting
one.
off, and you start with one of each,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
either I can try to take, so I can take two actions, and I can get my police car there, and then I can get my ambulance there the next turn. But if I get my police car there, then the guy next to me can get his ambulance
Gets his
there,
ambulance.
and whoever completes it gets the card. And so let me screen share with you really quick. Something I've been working on.
Yeah.
I have it. had a chance to really implement these yet. But if you see, did it go through correctly?
Not
Okay.
yet. There it goes. Yep.
Okay. So if you see, so I've got the tiles that I kind of remade here
Yep.
to be more colorful. And instead of what I used to have was just the stickers.
Yeah.
So I've kind of made my own tiles that'll be mixed up and sorted in random order. And then, whoever has the most of each, like the most tech cards, the most or industrial cards, like whoever has the most of those gets extra victory points at the end of the game.
Right.
So even if you're not getting a monetary award for putting your guys there, like maybe only the first 2 people to respond get paid, but the person that completes it is the one that actually gets to take the card.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that's a hidden motivation of, because if you're not getting anything, you're just gonna say screw you guys. Like, I'm not gonna help you get points when I'm not getting anything out of it. But if you're getting the card, then at least you're getting something. So you might be more tempted to actually help.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are the hidden victory. These are just some of them. Everybody will draw like a hidden victory card. Like this one, gain 6 prestige if you have collected 1 crisis of each color.
Right.
So
there's other motivations to play.
right. There's other motivations to complete crisis, even if you're not getting the primary or secondary bonus, which is always money.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about the sniping issue. So it is the issue there with sniping is, well, okay, so tell me how it works again exactly. So if I go in there with my police car,
well, let me pull up a card here.
Sure, and you come in with your ambulance, you get the card. What do I get?
So all right, so here's like the breakdown. I don't know if you can see this all right. With the light reflecting.
Yep.
So like this one requires 3 police cars and 3 ambulances. So whoever has the most vehicles contributing gets $6. Second most gets 3. Last gets 1. So if you're even on here, you'll probably get one of them. So any one of these people can put the last car on there and complete the crisis. So
yes. Oh, hey, your camera just got much clearer.
Oh, well, maybe because it's finally focused on something. So if I have 3 police cars and you have 2 ambulances, I'm already getting 6 points.
Mm-hmm.
You're already getting 3 points. I can bring the 3rd ambulance.
Right.
And I get the card and my 6 points. You get your 3 points. And
okay, and the card just counts towards being a color of
something. Yeah, and then now I have a blue card.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
Yeah, it did get much. Well, see, that's how it's the miracle of webcams. Just hold a card up to it until it focuses.
Yeah. Well, but now you're not. Now you're out of focus again.
Oh man, this thing has problems.
Yeah, it's. Now you're in focus. That's so weird. Anyway, okay, so you're getting
what it
points.
Wants to do.
No, but you're also getting. Now you're in focus. But you're also getting cards that have colors on them. The colors tell you or give you bonuses in the end for your end game, right?
Right. Yeah. So.
Okay. So coming into snipe, you might get the lower amount of points, but you'll get that card.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
So sniping isn't always beneficial. I mean, there is kind of that. If you see somebody that is collecting only green cards, and you start to think, okay, well, maybe that's their secret objective, or they're only 3 points.
Want green.
Right, they're only 3 points ahead of me. If they get that green award, they're going to beat me, so I'm going to snipe them. But if you're not committing a full force, if you're only sniping with that one last guy, then you're not getting a lot of money for yourself, which means you're not going to have a lot to spend on upgrades and things like that. So I think it is kind of a double-edged sword when it comes to sniping.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not everything, and that's good because you don't want it to be absolutely everything.
No, I mean it's not really. Yeah, it's not really snipe because if you're sitting there and you've got all but one vehicle, you want somebody to come and just you might be even like willing to make a deal, like, hey, I'll give you a coin or 2 if you just bring your ambulance over here. all you're getting is the card and the coin that I give you, but I'm getting like, $5 from this. So I need that money because next turn I want to upgrade. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of that decision you have to make.
So something clunky that you can do, and it's just clunky just because it's not really in the flow of the game, is show people, and these are what the end goals look like in like phase 4 or whatever.
Like in the rule book.
When things get well, yeah, in the room, or when you're just teaching them the game while you're playtesting, and so you may want to consider upgrading before then so that you can actually do these things, right?
Yeah, and I
Um,
feel like without having them play multiple times, I think that's the only way they're gonna know.
yeah, there's got to be another way to do that though without a strict, strategy guide or a blunt over the head kind of thing. I mean, you can lead them there in a subtle way that's more emergent that they think they figured it out, but really you led
Yeah,
them
I
there.
feel like that's a hard that's just a hard thing to do. Have you played
Oh,
Lorenzo?
totally is, but it's good.
Have you played
It's a
Lorenzo
good
El
thing to do.
Magnifico yet?
No, no, I
Okay.
want to though. I've heard it's really good.
So I was playing that the other day with Jeremy, who's just a genius when it comes to board games. Jeremy Salinas.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And like he's buying all these cards to kind of build his engine, and I, who've never played before, wasn't, because what I didn't understand was that in like there's like the first, second, and third age. When you get to the third age, the cost of everything spikes so greatly
You need that
that
engine to support it.
that
Yeah.
you have to have that engine. And me, as somebody who hadn't played before, I had no idea that was coming.
Right.
And the gameplay gives you the tools to prepare for that, but I didn't understand the gravity of this. Even though Jeremy said, "Hey, things are going to get more expensive by the third age. Prepare for that." Like I thought I was prepared until I saw the costs of how like ridiculously expensive things got to be in that
Right,
third
right.
age. And I don't
Yeah.
I don't know how to handle that besides like a blaring sidebar in the rule book that says stop reading and start upgrading your stuff. Like I don't know how to incentivize that.
Right. Okay. And so, I mean, behavioral incentivization, when you think about what we do for anything, is we either reward or we punish. Um, for if we want something to happen more, we should reward it. If we want something to happen less, we apply a penalty to it or punishment. That's just strict behavioral analysis stuff. So you can do that. I mean, we can reward people for doing the right thing. We can, which is giving points for upgrading. If you think upgrading is the thing that you need to do this thing,
Yeah, it
then
definitely is.
give them points for doing that, or do something. Is it's just even small. You'd be surprised how hard students work. Like in my classes, for like 1%. They don't study for like this 7% test, but for 1%, they'll go and make this entire video and put it online and research for 1%. It's really interesting what people do for a point. And so you can think about that in terms of your game design, that even that little thing that you were saying on the player board, if you have this whole column filled, by the end you get 1 point. If you have this whole column filled, by the end you get another point. That might be enough.
Yeah.
It's such a simple little change that in the end probably keeps scores, similar. And if everybody at the end does it, then it means nothing score wise, which is okay, because really you're not doing it to make differential in score. You're doing it so people see, oh, this is what I should be doing in order to kind of play this game in a more functional and fun way, right?
Yeah.
So that might just be
Definitely.
it.
Well, I think so. It did feel disingenuous for me because money is also victory points, and
Yes.
upgrades cost money. And it's funny because I see your point that if I drop the cost from 5 to 4, it's effectively the same as keeping the cost at 5 and
But
giving
giving
one
them
victory point. But I think
it
that if but I think more people would do the action if it costs 5 and gave a
psychologically, it's
victory.
entirely different though.
It is logically, but like
Yeah,
mechanically, it's the exact same function for
I know.
you, except that you have to have that fifth coin
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in your pool.
There's
But
there's all, and that's the other thing too. There is that practical matter of a threshold, right?
yeah,
That if I can do it sooner and it amounts to the same thing, why not? Like, I mean, from a game design perspective, we always kind of want to hit the fun part faster, right? Is what we always kind of say. It's like, if you're on a roller coaster, you don't want that click 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 climb to the top to be forever.
Right.
You kind of want it to be you need a little bit of it because you need the gravity to go down, but you also want that anticipation to rise. But then from then on, it's like, no, let's just hit loop after loop after loop after loop after loop, right? We don't want these long flats. That's
Yeah.
no fun.
No.
Or snowboarding, you don't want to go down this flat thing because that sucks. You want like parks and jumps and ramps and rails and stuff. It's the same thing in games. Like you want them to get to the fun faster. And I
Yeah.
think if you can lower the threshold, but still have mechanically exactly the same thing happen,
Yeah,
that's
I
not
mean,
a bad thing.
I have a couple. I mean, I have a couple ideas. I'm going to try them in
Yeah.
different like modular pieces. And one is offering the victory points. Another is making them cheaper. Another is still letting them upgrade every time they move. So every time you move, you can pay to upgrade. That that should hopefully get people doing it. Maybe even every time they move, they stop and think, "Do I want to upgrade before I make this move?"
Right. Yeah.
And then as for the action cards, I'm either debating between just making them free, and then your action is just draw one,
Hmm.
and then you don't. Then there's never there might be an opportunity cost, but there's never a monetary cost.
Yep.
Or like some games, you just always draw back up to like 3 cards at the end of your round. Something like
Yeah.
that. Like just making
Yeah.
action
That
cards
that
something
also
you
might
just
be fun.
draw. So
So, do action cards do what?
so they do it like right now. They do a bunch of different things between upgrading your vehicles.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I remember that one. Okay.
So some of them give you upgrades like like a helicopter propeller, so that your vehicle can fly and ignore movement rules.
Right.
Others are like let you combine vehicles, like your fire trucks can also act as ambulances and vice versa. And then
Hmm.
there are just straightaway action cards like move 1 extra space this turn, or a little bit of take that, like steal an action card from a player. Um, when a player goes to move their vehicle, you control where it moves instead of them. So like there's a little bit of take that in the action cards, just a little bit,
Hmm.
but in general, it's beneficial stuff to you.
Right. And so, I mean, those cards, maybe they are free. Maybe it is that kind of thing where you want them to be used, right?
Right,
Like
exactly.
you design them so people would play with them. And if they never get them in hand, they're never going to play with them. And if it costs them to do something and they can't see the immediate benefit of how that gets them points or money, or the other person less points or less money, they're probably not going to play it either, because the valuation is too difficult for them. Things need to be fairly immediate in terms of response recognition for them to actually use the card. So what you want to do there is, if it's not, make it cheap to play, so it
Yeah.
doesn't cost them. So they're playing it just for the fun of playing, to see what it'll do. Hey, what'll this
And I
do?
think, and
That's okay too.
originally, what I had the cards out, like a row of cards,
Yeah, yeah, I
and
remember.
you could keep playing until you decided you wanted to take a card, and then that was basically like you would stop, and then you would get that card, and then you would start off as first player the next round.
Hmm.
But there's just too many actions. Like nobody ever wants to stop taking actions. It's not like in terraforming Mars, where you have to basically pay money to do everything.
Hmm.
You reach a point where you have no choice but to
Yeah,
pass.
exactly. Like passing
But,
is the thing, right?
but in this game, there is no pass. I mean, if you can keep moving your vehicles consistently, you're not going to stop until everything on the board has been complete. And I thought about ways to limit that, like you could once you've completed a crisis with your vehicle, it has to stay there for the rest of the round. But then it becomes this case of trying to remember like whatever who did
Yeah.
what.
And so the question there is that worth tracking, or is it
Yeah, I
actually
don't.
fun that everything moves around all the time?
Right. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try at least one game where the
Hmm.
game doesn't end until where the round doesn't end until everybody passes. But then
Okay.
basically what that means is there's nothing stopping you from getting your vehicles where you want it to go. So
Right.
like I feel like that makes movement useless, because if you can just take another action, yes, getting there faster is better because you're not racing someone,
Hmm.
but at the end of the day, you're still getting there. So
Right.
I don't think it's gonna work, but I think it might give me some insight if I play at least one game with that rule.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a good experiment. If you have a team that'll play that,
Yeah.
you should do that. And it might even be a team that's already played the other way, so you can get them to compare and contrast for you.
Yeah, I've got a
That
couple
might be
people that have
helpful.
played multiple times now that have seen kind of all these different revisions. So that's kind
And
of, it's
what are
nice to
they
have.
saying? What are they saying? I'd love to know.
Well, yeah, I mean, so far the response has been great. I actually have one good friend that's been playing it, my friend Mark, who's kind of an entry level gamer, I'd say. Like, you know, he loves gaming. He's just not hardcore about it. Like,
Yeah,
he doesn't have a
makes sense.
thousand piece board game library, whatever.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
he's actually really into it. I get phone calls from him sometimes, and he's like, "Oh, I was just on the road and I had this idea. I wanted to let you know, like, here's an idea I have about first responders,
Yeah,
and it's great to have that level. He's played it more times, I think, than anybody besides me, because he's just always, whenever we get together, he's like, oh, I want to try another round of it.
right.
So that's kind of cool. So he's,
Definitely.
it's nice to have somebody that's seen all the different revisions that can tell me I like this better than that. But it's also good to have new players, because I don't want them to start. I don't want them to try to play the game like they played it last time. If I've changed a lot of stuff,
Yeah,
like come into it with a fresh perspective.
yeah, definitely.
But
Board Game
so
Authority is saying get non-friends to play, and for sure,
right,
Ryan, you're doing that.
yeah, and so far the feedback has been very good. At least, I mean, everyone that plays it knows it's a prototype. I know there's still issues. They know there are still issues, but so everybody said, like I see the game here. It's like I
Hmm.
see the game here. It's just getting it distilled down, take away everything that doesn't need to be there, and just find it.
Yeah, and I mean that could be another thing too. I mean, these really fun things that you think are so cool, maybe they're not for this
Yeah,
game.
yeah,
Maybe there's
exactly.
something you would have in another game, and that might be okay too, right?
Hmm.
If the fun of the game is racing around and sniping people out of the things that they thought they were going to walk away with and whatnot, maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Um, but the idea of figuring out what you want from your game comes through. I believe it's emergent. I believe it comes through playtesting it. That
Hmm.
as people play it and they figure out how it works and they experiment with your system, you'll figure out more solidly where you want to go direction wise, right?
Yeah.
So um yeah, there's a lot here. There's a lot of interesting stuff. What was the single biggest change that you did that you felt made the most positive impact for you?
You mean since conception?
No, since Metatopia, because that was the last time
Oh,
we talked.
well, since Metatopia, um, I shrunk the board. I mean that like I took it back. It actually was when I went to the play test day. 3 of the 4 players that had played it um,
On the bigger
on the
board.
bigger board, I introduced it to them with the smaller board, and they all told me like this just got way more competitive. It got way more exciting
Hmm.
since now you're all clustered in that small area. I had one person said that maybe it's too small, that maybe 5 by 5 is the answer.
Yeah,
Um, and I
I
guess
could see that.
it doesn't need to be a grid, theoretically, technically.
Yeah.
It's just that the way it's spaced with everybody being on the corner means that everybody's equal away from
Right.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you have
Sure.
like a weird board that's snakes and one guy puts his thing over here, like he's got a long way to go to get to the, you know,
Right. Yeah.
because it's modular. I mean, I want the tiles to be modular because
Hmm.
I don't want them to always be the same tiles next to each other every game.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Why would anybody want that?
Well, I mean, I, al- I always say that. I choose modular games all the time. If you can make your components modular, do it. That's just
You're happier.
I'll, when I open a game and I see that they're like tiles instead of a board, yeah, it's way more exciting.
That's
Like, okay, I
funny.
can.
It's interesting because again, um,
It depends on the style of game, of course.
sure,
Like Euro games aren't generally modular,
right.
but when I go to play a worker placement game and there's a
Hmm.
stack of possible locations this big,
Yeah.
and you only play with like half of them,
Yeah.
like that's like
That makes
that's like the greatest thing for me.
that makes you happy.
Yeah, like super happy
Yeah. Yeah.
because
I mean, I can see a variety being interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, some of the problems that we find with modular boards and things like that is that, again, it's that did the first game have an optimum setup for the best experience possible? That's the only issue with modularity that I have. I think modularity is a wonderful thing. The problem is that I know that some designers, especially designers that don't have access to dev, have really pushed into make it modular for the sake of making it modular, as opposed to for the sake of actually making it a better game. Because modularity does not necessarily mean that it's going to be a 100% better game. It has the trappings of it, and definitely there are many good games out there that are better because of modularity and that we've experienced, and we say, okay, awesome, that means all modular boards are good. But the fact is that they're not,
Well, that yeah,
right?
and I should say I get excited when I see modular. Sometimes I am really disappointed after I actually play it, but
Good,
I'm still
good, good,
I
good.
like
You're
opening. I
actually
like having
excited.
that option. I have
Oh, for
played
sure.
games
I definitely,
where I have had games like that where the modular setup has ended up just crashing and burning. I don't know
yeah,
for this game. I don't know that there is a like optimal setup, considering there are 4 tiles of every color. There's an equal amount of cards for each color in the deck, and they
mhm,
scale across all different levels of difficulty.
right,
And I tried to keep it equal, so like every color is equally represented. No color is better, so that when you're positioning your headquarters in the beginning, you can't say, oh, well, I know there's more green cards in the deck, so I'm going to go over here where all the green districts are. Like
right.
everything should be equal.
Mhm,
So I don't think there's an optimal setup. I mean, even if everything is clustered, so you have like green, red, like in sections,
right.
like you're not going to draw 4 red ones in a row. You know what I mean? So it's not like,
Mhm.
one guy's, I don't know. We'll wait and see after we play test it a bunch. But sometimes I
Yeah,
see in rule books they have that, like, if this is your first game, just set it up this way.
right. Yeah, definitely. Again, that's presenting most likely what is the optimum gameplay experience for that particular game.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, there's definitely been times when modularity has bit, players in the butt in the terms of like, yeah, that was not fun at all.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's because you played in this particular way or you had the map set up this way, which makes it absolutely no fun for a first time player because you don't understand the nuances of how to, maybe move around, 6 mountain tiles in a row or whatever this game particularly is. So,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I see the value in modularity. I just don't think it's the be all and end all of everything.
No, I mean, I just like it a lot.
Mhm. Oh, and it sells. It definitely
It does.
sells. It's
Well,
a buzzword, right? That said, oh, modular, gotta get it, or makes it more
like
appealing.
Innis is a great example of a modular game that I absolutely love. Like,
Hmm.
I love that Innis. Like, it's always a different game.
Yep. Yeah, and there's definitely games out there that do a wonderful job of modularity. I just think it's not a given thing that everything modular is always good. That's sort of the bias, I think so.
Yeah.
So, next on your agenda, what do you think?
So, well, I'm going to. I need to like my big thing is play test these different options,
Hmm.
find that sweet spot where people are upgrading. Um,
Right.
I think that's just what I'm gonna. I think I need to redo the cards a little bit. Um,
The
just
upgrade cards
just
or the action cards?
the crisis cards.
Oh, okay.
I haven't quite nailed down exactly how long I want the game to be yet.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Do you have an arc for your game yet?
you mean
I
like
think you
difficult?
do.
You mean like
I just want
difficulty
you.
wise, or
Yeah, sure. I just want you to explain what you think your arc is.
well, it definitely goes more like this
Yeah.
than like this. No, but
Yeah.
I so the way it is right now, it's I have everything broken down into like quarters, like financial quarters, like quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, quarter four, and you stack the decks. So you go through quarter one first, then quarter two, then quarter three, then quarter four, and by quarter four, that's you've got all like the really crazy escalated stuff that happens.
Right.
So the way it should play is like, you have a really it starts to get more and more difficult to complete these crises. They start to pile up, which means that some of them are getting replaced. So
Oh, okay.
so the one that you were going for, like the farther in the game you get, the more likely it is that the one you're going for might vanish, because if you can't complete them fast enough, if you go to place a green one and there are no free spaces in green, you have to replace one.
Oh, okay.
And so by the time you get up to the high levels, like the fourth quarter, it's going to require cooperation to complete these. Unless
Hmm.
even if you've managed to upgrade, uh, because the highest capacity you can get is 3, and
Hmm.
some of these crises require 4. So either you
Right.
bring 2 of your vehicles, or you have to hope that somebody else comes along with you.
Right. And if you bring two of your vehicles, you're actually wasting like two, right? Because
Yeah,
the capacity is
right,
six.
exactly, because that's technically 6, and you really only needed 4.
Hmm.
And
Interesting.
so, yeah, it should it seems to scale pretty well. When people don't upgrade, it's a real problem because they just can't complete the quarter 4 crisis.
And they're probably not even like a valuable addition at that point. Like they just like add a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, so what
So
happened? Yeah, they had like 1, and so when I played a game with everybody and I did my upgrades, I had a couple things up to. It's not viable to upgrade everything. That's
no, no,
not
no. And
like
I think
it's not
that's a
viable.
good thing.
So I had
Yeah.
a couple things. I was focusing on speed so I could race my things up there. But nobody else could keep up. Nobody could get. I was like, okay, guys, our only chance. We only have one crisis that we could even complete out of all these quarter 4 crisis cards. But we all need to work together. Let's all, let's try to get this. Somebody's going to get points. Somebody's going to get the card. So, but we couldn't do it.
That's interesting too, right? Because it is this semi co-op ishness,
A little bit.
even though I'm not sure if they're supposed to be. I mean, they're supposed to be, but
Well, they're supposed to
huh,
be.
it's
I mean, it's
interesting.
it's encouraged a little bit. I'm kind of debating between a like this mechanic, like New Angeles. I don't know if you played New Angeles yet, but
No.
it has, it's not really cooperative at all. It's actually really backstabby. But if the chaos of the city ever gets to 25, everybody loses.
Hmm.
And even before I played New Angeles, I was debating something like that. If too
Yes.
many crisis cards go unresolved, then just everybody
Everybody,
loses.
the game's over.
Yeah, the game's over. And it's not necessarily to encourage cooperation as much as it is to discourage somebody just saying, screw you guys, I'm not helping anybody now.
Right.
Like, it's meant to discourage that behavior.
Which is, yeah, I mean, that's a good thing to discourage. Um, Semi co-ops are hard, right? Because
Yeah.
somebody can just decide to screw the whole game over. But I think yours is less of a semi co-op.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
much less. So the corporation is like, so if I've got a bunch of guys on one that's like giving me 8 points, and if you come to help me, you're only going to get 4. Well, if you're 10 points ahead of me, like it doesn't matter if I'm closing that gap by 4. But if you're only 4 points ahead of me and that gap would tie us, like you have to think really hard about whether you want to help me complete that crisis or not.
right. Yeah.
Now you might have a secret victory condition in your hand where, okay, you think that we're tying, but in reality, I'm actually going to pass you because of this secret victory card.
Yes.
So
Yeah. So yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of decisions to make
Yeah.
at,
Cool.
at the end.
Hmm. And how does card play come into that? You think, other than the secret goal cards? Obviously, you can use the kind of more pokey cards to get somebody's resources or stop them from
Yeah.
coming in and making them go slower or faster or yourself faster. Um, yeah, and I mean, even in the rules, when you actually write up the actual rules, I mean, you can do all that kind of exemplification kind of stuff where it's like, and in this turn, Joe bought this upgrade, which allows
Yeah.
him to do this and this. And now look, he's going to play this card, which allows him to do this. So, I mean, you may be able to exemplify some strategies that would lead to higher level play. That might be nice. Um, yeah, it's that kind of thing. And, it's a kind of, you hear that catchphrase, right? Where it says, this is a game that rewards many plays.
Oh yeah.
You heard that?
Yeah.
Yeah, what does that mean to you?
It means that you like I have to play it a bunch of times before I even understand what's going on, really.
Yeah.
Like
And
like
is that a positive
no,
thing? Is
it's
it a
not something
negative
at
thing?
all.
Or is it just a thing?
Well, I noticed that all my favorite games, every game that I play, is because I loved it the first time I played it. If I don't love it,
Right.
I might not come back to it.
Hmm. And I think therein lies the problem, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what that's you want to have people be enjoying the game straight from the get-go, and I don't know if they don't, of your particular game, because I've never watched anybody else play it, without the upgrading, without the other things, but I know you don't think that they're having as much fun as they could have if they were upgrading and using the action cards
Yeah,
system,
well, I
for
mean, everybody
instance.
seems so. Everybody was having a lot of fun every time anybody's played.
Hmm.
Luckily, I've liked that they look like they're having fun. They're talking over the board state. They're figuring out their optimal moves. Which is
Right.
cool to see. But then yes, when it gets to that like the end of the third quarter and the start of the fourth quarter, and then they go, oh well, never mind. Now we can't. We actually can't complete any of these. Then it's like, okay, let's hurry up and start upgrading now that we're at that level. Now we start upgrading, but there's only X turns. So by that point in the game, at least with the old rules, you were done. Now, if the new rules let you upgrade for free, like every time you move you can upgrade, then that could alleviate that.
Hmm.
So I have to wait and see.
Yeah. How is your I wanted to ask you just a quick question about your math. How is the math working for ties? So if there were exactly, like, let's say you had for that card that you
Oh,
showed,
for the for the
you
for
had,
the cards like to
yeah,
complete a
you had
crisis.
3 and I had 3 in there.
Yeah, currently in a tie, the the higher point value of money, the higher money value goes to the first person there. So
Oh, okay.
when you put your things on there, and I kind of borrowed that a little bit from pandemic contagion, because
Sure.
you can have ties in that game as well. Everybody's putting their cubes on the city. When it reaches X cubes, it outbreaks and you score the card. So it's very easy to
Hmm.
have two or even three people tie, and that's the mechanic they use that I thought was really nice. Is just first person to put a cube goes on top, then this bottom, you know, that way you always know who got there first. If there
Yep.
is a tie, it's easy to sort out. But it's the person that was the last one to place still gets the card. So if they know that they were there last and they know that their last guy makes a tie, they know they can't possibly get that higher value, but they might think I'll take the lower value and the card. Like I get that's a better value for me than just not getting anything.
True. Yeah, I can see that as a thing.
I feel like I feel there are a lot of choices with that, but again, I mean, this new iteration needs to get play tested a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, before you make any big changes, what are the 3 little changes, or even 1 or 2 little changes that you think you're going to do next? Like, write them down, sequence them out, and which ones do you want to do next? What do you think?
Like the little changes I want to do.
Yeah, what little changes can you actualize within before the next time we talk? I mean, you're really fast at doing a lot of them, so
Oh, I'm hoping that by the next time I'm hoping that I've figured out uh, how many crisis cards I want in the crisis deck. That
okay,
I'm
yeah,
hoping
yeah.
that's my next step. Is I really want to nail that number. Um,
Well, how long a gameplay now? How long does it take?
it takes about an hour right now
Okay. With rules or without
with
rules?
with rules, and maybe about an hour and a half. It's varied um,
Yep.
between about an hour to an hour
Sure.
and a half, and that's
Okay,
with
so probably
that's with rules, and that's where I want it to be. But I feel like on your third or fourth play, what we've done in an hour and a half would probably only take you about 45 minutes.
if
I
you
mean,
knew what you were doing.
if you knew what you were doing, it would only take like
Yeah.
45 minutes.
Okay, and
And
that's kind of your sweet spot, you think?
it's a little short. Um, I think it's a little short. I'm just trying to figure out because the number of crisis cards that go out that's the max number of crisis cards that can be taken. And if it's
Oh,
split
yes,
up
that's true.
evenly, so if I have like 24 cards total and that's it, that means everybody's on average going to have like maybe 5 cards, maybe at the most. And I don't know if that's too many or too few. Um, I just need to play test it at a couple different options and see
Mhm.
what's gonna happen. Yeah, I think that the pacing of the game is one of the small things I need to nail down.
Okay, and that will come mostly through how the crisis decks output to the table. Okay,
Right, exactly.
okay. So
So
there's that. What's the other
yes,
one?
there's that. Um, I mean, figuring out the best way to incentivize upgrades
Okay,
for sure, and then figuring out what I want to do with action cards. I think for the
okay,
next month, those are my 3 goals. Hopefully by January, I've got all that nailed down, and those are kind of the last steps towards getting a working prototype. I think once I nail those 3 things down, then it's maybe just fine tuning. But
yeah. Those sound great. That sounds
there's
perfect, actually.
there might be other. I mean, who knows? There's always stuff. I've already got done. I've already done the most of the secret victory cards, and
Oh yeah,
I want to play a couple rounds with those and make sure they all work because they have to be balanced too, of course.
for sure.
So,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I
I
think
mean, that all sounds really good.
yeah, when it gets closer, I think I will do like a print and play, even if it's just to get feedback on those cards from players that have tell me
For
like,
sure.
this is if you get this secret victory card, you're going to win. It's ridiculous.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, definitely get out there and you know start thinking about how you're going to deliver a print and play. Um, so you need to think about low cost, low color,
yep.
low componentry. What's the components that they have to provide? What are the components that you'll provide for them through the printing? So lots of things to think about. But yeah,
Yeah, I'm designing everything in black and white and then adding color after,
hmm,
so that I know it looks good in black and white. So that people that are going to do a print and play in black and white won't lose any function.
that's a good
Um,
idea. I like that.
and also, I just need it to be
It's thoughtful.
I need it to be playable by people that are colorblind. So the colors aren't really a factor in the gameplay. They just make it a little. If you, I mean, they make it a little easier. You don't have to read the card to figure out what district
Right.
to go to. You can just match the colors.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
that's good.
yeah, it's still playable in black and white for sure.
Excellent. 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 Yeah, I mean, because you could actually change the colors, maybe even into color plus, an icon or like
Yeah,
a shape
I
or something
right
like
now
that,
I
like a
just
gradient
have
or something.
like I'm bad at graphic design. I could just use some like
That's
clip
okay.
art or something, but right now it's just text. Match the
Hmm.
text. If this card says residential and this tile is residential, that's where it goes. But I think maybe a symbol might be easier. You can just glance at the symbols. It wouldn't be hard, like a little house for, you know, residential or whatever.
Yeah, that all sounds good, man.
Yeah, I think those are so. Hopefully in January we have a better sense of what the final game is going to look like.
Yeah, and I mean, December is actually a really good month for playtesting in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, I
So
got a lot of time off to work on this.
exactly, exactly. Well, sounds like you're ready to go. That's great. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say in about 4 weeks.
Yeah.
We'll link up then. Obviously, we can chat between then. Um, Keep posting to your blog because it's great that you're being transparent about your design process. Um, there might be some people out there who actually are learning from you, and that's a wonderful thing. I
Ah,
think it's great. Just to
we'll
show
see.
what you're doing, just be
Yeah.
transparent about it, and that's great. You might find some people who are interested in helping you play test because of it. And once you get your blog up to a state where there's a couple, there's a little more content that people can read and follow along with, definitely advertise it, especially amongst, our friends and things like that, where it's, in the board game designing community, in the board game geek community and stuff like that. I'm sure you'll find some people who would really like to help you, play test your game. Even when we were just talking about, what are some crises that first responders deal with, and
Yeah.
you posted that on
On
the
Facebook.
board game
Yeah.
designer.
On the
Yeah,
Board Game Designers
like
page. Yep.
that was like a huge thread. There were like 30 or 40 people and they're just chiming in, and I'm sure a bunch of them would like to try the game that they had put some effort into for
Yeah.
you, right?
That's a
So
good idea.
yeah, yeah, let them know. Once you get a good solid set down, I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I guess that's it from the Game Dojo for today. We'll talk to Ryan in 2017. Oh
I
my
know,
God,
right? Crazy.
that's crazy, man. And we'll see just how closer we are next year. Ties first responders.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
you never know. It might become more of a reality than it is a game.
hopefully.
Well, I don't know. Do you think privatized first responders are actually a good thing, Ryan?
No, I don't think it's a good thing, but
No, I don't think it's a good
it would do
thing.
really well for advertising my game.
That's true. That is true. All right. So from the Game Dojo and Maple Syrup, etc., etc. Oh yeah, watch Maple Syrup tomorrow at noon. I won't be there. I'll be running exams for my classes, so I think it'll be Tiffany and Daryl and some special guest, plus our regular guests. But our guest host, not me. And I won't be there the week after either. And then in 2017, we're actually probably changing the dates, but we'll let you all know about that. So we'll see Ryan and Bob and Devin and Steve within the next couple of weeks, and then Ryan again in 2017 to see where he's gone with all the changes that he's made
Yeah.
to first responders. All right, Ryan, we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thanks, son.
No problem. See you later.
Happy holidays. Yeah.
You too. Bye.